These sneaky and cowardly Sicilians, the descendants of bandits and assassins who have transported to this country the lawless passions, the cutthroat practices, are to us a pest without mitigations. Our own rattlesnakes are as good citizens as they. Our own murderers are men of feeling and nobility compared to them. This was what my family faced. It's amazing that they came out the other side.
Today, the descendants of Irish and Italian people are just white Americans. But when the Italians first came to America, they weren't necessarily considered to be white Americans.
Though they were definitely not considered to be white Americans. And what was interesting, this goes back to the founding of the Republic in 1790, where I don't know, it was part of the Alien and Sedition Act, but they said white people could become naturalized citizens. That was a law. That goes way back. That goes 200 years back. After we talked, and I was wondering what kind of world my Italian relatives lived in, I came across some information that I did not know, which was the origin of Columbus Day. Columbus Day was a big thing for us. My high school always marched in it. Every single class had to march in the St. Patrick's Day Parade and the Columbus Day Parade. He became the Italian who discovered America. He became part of America's origin story. So we were Americans now. We were very proud of that. What I didn't know was how Columbus Day came about. The first Columbus Day was in 1892, I think. Isn't that nice? Benjamin Harrison, the president, declared Columbus Day. Why did he do that? I mean, there were lots of Italians coming to the country. He did it to avoid a war with Italy. Why was America about to be in a war with Italy? Because Italy cut off diplomatic relations with the United States. Why did Italy cut off relations with the United States? Because 11 Italians in New Orleans had been lynched by a mob because a sheriff had been murdered. They decided to blame the Italians. They arrested a whole bunch of them. Most of them were acquitted, and the other ones had a mistrial. That's how bad the evidence was, because the juries were all rigged then. A mob decided that they wanted their own revenge, and so they broke them out of the jail and they lynched them. And how did this happen? Did you even know there were Italians in New Orleans? After the Civil War, they were desperate for labor because the slaves had all been freed. So here come the Italians. They're willing to work for nothing. All these Italians flood into New Orleans. They have their own neighborhoods. They have their own presses. They have their own, businesses. They start selling to the Black community. They start intermarrying with the Black community. Louisiana decides that these Italians are Black. They say that they're inherently criminal, they're genetically inferior, and everything else that came in this country with being Black. The white elite start to want their businesses. There's an economic downturn. The population considers them the same as Blacks. When this sheriff is murdered by who knows, he was a bad guy and he had hundreds of enemies. They just lit on the Italians, who were Black people as far as they were concerned. They murder them, and the Italian government cuts off diplomatic relations with the United States. So if that hadn't happened, Benjamin Harris had to do something about it, because we're about to go to war with Italy. And so all of us who are marching in the Columbus Day Parade had no idea that the reason that we were allowed in to the American origin story was that Italy stood up for its immigrants and told them basically we were going to go to war with the United States. And we had to back down and let all of those Italians into the white race. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, the quotes in the story that I read from the New York Times about mongrels And how could you let these genetically inferior kids sit next to American children in schools? I mean, it was really vile, but still, that is the backstory of Columbus Day. So when you look at those immigrants coming to the border, just remember once upon a time, that was you.
The same vitriol and demonization that Trump and Trumpism shows to immigrants today, some version of it has happened to literally every immigrant group that has come to this country at some point or another.
Yeah, I want to read to you from the New York Times after those gentlemen were lynched. He said, Chief Hennessy avenged 11 of his Italian assassins lynched by a mob, which they were not. But they demonized them in the headlines so that when you find out that they were murdered by a mob, you don't care. It's like, oh, well, they had it coming to them anyway. These sneaky and cowardly Sicilians, the descendants of bandits and assassins who have transported to this country the lawless passions, the cutthroat practices, are to us a pest without mitigations. Our own rattlesnakes are as good citizens as they. Our own murderers are men of feeling and nobility compared to them.
Donald Trump might not put it in those words, but he basically is saying
He
the
came really
exact same
close.
thing.
Yeah. This is not the first time. This was what my family faced. It's amazing that they came out the other side.
Hey folks, Future Will here. I just wanted to comment on some recent news that this whole discussion made me think of, because over a century since this story we've been discussing, where an immigrant community was falsely accused of committing a crime in New Orleans, Donald Trump falsely claims that an immigrant committed this horrible crime in New Orleans. In fact, the person who committed this recent attack was a native-born citizen from Texas. But even beyond that similarity, the language that Trump used in telling this lie was eerily familiar to the language my mom just cited from the New York Times.
Our own murderers are men of feeling and nobility compared to them.
Trump wrote on Truth Social, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media. But it turned out to be true. As Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." Thanks so much for watching, everyone. That was a clip from one of our full episodes, so if you want to hear more of that discussion, please click the link on your screen. And if you're enjoying these discussions, please like and subscribe and let us know what you think in the comments. And please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get early access to our videos and bonus content. Patreon.com/talkingpoliticswithmom. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.